Hey, welcome back to another session. And right now, I'm excited to introduce Andy, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Storyhub.ai. Definitely check out the company. I'm going to drop the link here in the chat as well, by the way. And so excited about the topic firefighting and moving from firefighting to delight. We've been talking about so many different topics during the entire day today and yesterday. But this is touching on many subjects, right? So excited to hear your session, Andy.
Well, thank you very much, Natalie. I appreciate it and appreciate the event and introduction. So, welcome to the show here, and I'll get kicked off. So, moving from firefighting to delight, as my background is as an entrepreneur building businesses. Those businesses have CX, customer success, customer experience functions, and so I'm a product and customer. I'm customer obsessed. So have been in that line of fire since my first SaaS business in 1997. So have lived there and have the scar tissues and lessons, and so understand that really, as we go through this, these moments of building these businesses, we have to get to delight. That's the end game. So as a CX leader, and I know I'm this way, we're people, and so we have everyone depending on us, from the customers with issues and challenges every day, our teams, everyone in the business. Obviously, churn, retention, all of that is predicated on us making sure that we show love when we need to show love. So, to make everyone happy, ultimately, as a CX leader, you need to stay one step ahead. And the way that I've always thought about it is you need to own today. And so, in my experience, there are basically two broad daily modes. One is firefighting, and the other one's winning. And winning is where delight is possible. The firefighting days, we had in 1997, very early on, we had it was a SaaS company, so internet backbone problems, all sorts of things that really created some serious firefighting days, and sleeping under desks and doing all those things. So while it's not perfectly distinct, there are interim modes of burnt and hurt, but generally speaking, the objective to my mind was always, okay, how do we keep the firefighting days down? How do we just try and back that possibility down? Because the more that affords us the opportunity to be delighting. And every customer's needs your help at the exact same time, the now time, and therein lies the rub. Because as a team, as you all well know, gets into firefighting mode, it goes from bad to worse pretty quick. And it goes from bad to worse because the customers that need you are not getting what they need when they need it. And while this used to be a problem, it's growing more and more so, because days are fragile. They're incredibly fragile things, and time flies. And there's absolutely no substitute for knowing what you're up against early. So, as the Christmas story, leg lamp, the fragile box, days are fragile, and so we need to be really super mindful as to how we use them. So, our customers these days, we know, once burned, twice shy. 51% of customers will quit a company after a single bad experience. So I think this is the key, and love the theme of this event on CX as a revenue driver, because this is really at the heart of it. Back in the day when businesses were physical and had shelves and all these things, your best competition wasn't a single click away. Today it is. And so, from a customer's perspective, their level of tolerance is all but zero. And so that means that as a CX team, you own a revenue responsibility that has, we hadn't really thought about it in that capacity. And certainly from my own experience and that of a lot of CX leaders, they don't always get the respect that is really due, and therein lies a problem. So firefighting not only tires our customers, but also tires our teams. Firefighting is absolutely exhausting, leaving a team spent and stressed. And so, in that CX leader capacity, you need to figure out a way to keep these days down and keep them absolutely under control. So with that, over the years and having lived through a lot of fires, I've done a lot of forensics and tried to figure out, sifting through the ashes and debris, what exactly are we talking about, and how might we think about these things. And so, going back to the Boy Scout motto, the goal really isn't complicated or new. It's about being prepared. Your customers' experiences are all happening in now, meaning today. And so this idea of how do I own today? How do I be prepared in a way that lets me delight my customers, keep my team in the frame of mind to delight the customers, and ultimately deliver the business returns that come with that. So in my journey, I've really distilled being prepared and owning today to come down to three things. And those three things are the first is a forecast, and we'll talk in more depth about each one of these. Knowing what the day has in store is incredibly helpful. And so whether it's knowing that it's going to be rainy, knowing that the temperature, forecasts, I think are so incredibly useful to us as human beings, because we're just trying to figure out where to level set, where to set our feet. One of my favorite forecast tools is on my smart scale. My smart scale tells me the weather, and it's like, well, that's a perfect time. It's before I've gotten dressed. That's the ideal time. And so getting a little bit of preview as to what today is going to hold can be incredibly helpful and doable. The next is don't get blindsided. And this is, Eric, easier said than done, but early warning are incredibly valuable. So we'll talk about that. But I know from my own experience and the experience of hundreds of others, you get blindsided, and that is often when the fire starts. Something hits you from left field, maybe positive, maybe negative, but nonetheless, it is consuming capacity at an alarming rate, and consequently, everyone's up against the wall. And finally, being ready to help. Your customers in your business have specific problems, specific challenges, and so really having plans to go to locate them and help them is the key. So to my mind, we have all of these tools, but ultimately, like, being successful comes down to this, being prepared to dig in. So let me go into that. So a reliable forecast, and leaning into our fire analogy here, is the danger for fire moderate? Is the TSA threat level? Is the air quality level? These things are used all over the place, and again, they're not there to be perfect, but indicative. But because ultimately the value in a forecast for me, and in all of these cases, is the consistency. Is it consistent? Is it data driven? Is it always going to tell me the same thing when the same set of factors are true? And so that's the real utility of it, because you need to be able to say to your team, hey, today is going to be a tough day. And it's going to be a tough day. We're up against some challenges, and therefore let's get our head in that space. Or on the flip side, hey, there's half the country's on holiday. Today should be a light day. Let's brush up on some training, do some HR work, whatever that might be. Having a reliable forecast just lets you get your head in that space and be able to be prepared. So in doing this a bunch of times, building the forecast, every business is unique. So you always have to factor in the elements that you know about your particular business. But what I see is the three main drivers are the volume. So, if you're just swamped by volume, and so different businesses will have different cycles. There are different businesses that have heavy, annual cycles. Folks selling stuff for back to school or the holidays will have obviously a very big lump. Other folks might have weekly cycles or monthly cycles. The folks from Freshly, a much different set of cycles on food than Christmas goods. Team issues. Is there an issue with a particular BPO team? Does the capacity of the team? Because really, what you're looking for is a stressor in terms of the volume of support needed versus the agents that you have fielded today. And so you're looking for that. It might be a sales or product related issue that can drive volumes. We've seen marketing campaigns go out without CX being alerted to it, and creating things, creating big surges. So thinking about what are the forecast elements that you can factor in, the systemic or seismic activity. A lot of times these are defective products. I've seen it countless times. External events. So talking to the folks at Open Table as an example, and the effects of weather systems. And so you have different externalities, different external events. Availability, if it's a software platform, then availability is obviously going to be one of those systemic issues that is going to ripple through the organization. So these systemic issues, and we'll talk about them a bit further, are a driver, as well as then problem children. The issues that just the cases that won't close, can't close, and you're really trying to get them closed. But basically, you have those three buckets, and so a reliable system of placing measure, identifying these things, so you have a forecast. And you can say, hey, is today going to be sunny, cloudy, or rainy, and be able to level set yourself on the basis of that is a huge win. So specifically diving into early warning, early warnings are, again, letting you find out as early as possible about something that's going to ripple through the organization. And so you have things, in our case, one of the things back at the security business, we secured banks. So we secured hundreds and hundreds of banks, and on 9/11, and on 9/11, we watched that happen. And as an information security provider, our entire the team that we depended upon in the Pentagon was standing in the parking lot. And so we knew there was this tsunami of issues coming towards us. And so obviously an externality and knowing about these things as soon as possible lets you be proactive. Because if you want to save a customer's experience, get to them early. And so early warning, again, depending upon what kind of products or services you're selling, those early warnings will take on a number of different characteristics. But when you look at it broadly, the 80-20 rule is really, really helpful. Because you're not looking for everything in the known universe. You're looking for top 5 issues, top 10 issues, depending upon what the nature of your business is, that you want to make sure you have some capacity to detect early. And so it might be product issues, reliability problems. We've seen in the clothing industry, one of the suppliers changed the size of a dress. So the small was now fitting like an extra small. And so by detecting those things early, you understand, okay, we have 367 of these things that we sold, and they're now out in the field, and now we got to figure that out. Policy changes that you have material negative reaction, again, external issues. Partners, we've been dealing a lot with folks with supply chain issues, shipping through the Panama Canal, et cetera, that had those things. So by having, as a CX leader, a capacity that you understand to within your unique business, what are the things that really send the day sideways? And how do I put together as simple, Occam's razor, how do I put it as simple a monitoring system as possible? Because catching these things, 15 minutes earlier matters, 30 minutes earlier, 2 hours earlier, a day earlier. These are amazing pieces of time to completely and radically change the customer's experience on the other end of these things. And we know that these systemic issues are going to impact widely. So catching it as early as possible is really a tremendous value add for the business. And last is rescue. So this is so important, because as you're dealing with thousands or hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of issues a week, a month, whatever that period is, people will get lost. We're all human beings, we're all fallible. These things will happen. The question is, in your business, how do people get lost and how do we find them if they do? So being mindful about that, thinking about, okay, how do we want to locate them? How are we going to act quickly? What is our response? How do we be kind? Because they didn't want to be lost. No one wants to be lost. So having, again, understanding and having that perspective so that you can do that. So finding, customers headed towards a bad experience or already there, some ideas to start with. And again, based upon your business, things can be different, but waiting is the universal human problem. Things like a single wait time being too long, or a cumulative wait time. Maybe there's back and forth happening with an agent on a particular issue. So while no one wait time has been big, the cumulative trips over some threshold that you want to establish. Because if you're trying to build delight, getting these things right is a great tool to being able to do that. Communications challenges. People. My undergrad degree was in philosophy and cognitive linguistics. Communication is hard. It's hard, and it's not nearly as easy as it looks on Twitter. So communication back and forths, too many back and forths is often indicative of potentially two people not quite understanding, that they're not quite on the same page. Escalating emotions, any hostility, and ultimately, no hope. I've counseled lots of folks, like, have systems to detect where we're at the end. And the thing to do is to gracefully exit out, get them a return, send them a gift card, whatever that might be. But by building these rescue lists in advance, building, what your responses are in advance, allows you to pull the information together in a super streamlined way, and know what you're going to do, take action. Because the context of each rescue list kind of establishes what it is that you'd likely do. And so that's been a really super useful tool in doing that. So when you think about these things all together, the forecasts, the early warnings, the rescue lists, it's about being systematically prepared and building a habit that you cultivate, so you can build something simply and have it reliably every AM. The objective with a strategy like this is to have it, really as you wake up as a CX leader, so that you're processing it on your commute, be it you work remotely, so it's across the living room onto the couch, or into work, being ready for that morning stand up and having all the information at your fingertips. Breeds confidence in your team. It breeds confidence in management, and ultimately puts you on better footing to ultimately delight. So, this can start with a humble checklist and super basic measurements. Again, there's a range of different businesses here. So, the key, I think, where I see people go wrong is they try and get too fancy too early, and they ultimately create a project that ultimately they can't execute on, and it's too labor intensive to do as reliably. Because again, getting back to owning today, the key is that you have it every morning. that is the key. It's not a weekly thing, because customers, are in some B2B situations, a customer might wait a week for something, but certainly in consumer facing businesses, that's an unusually long amount of time given how Amazon and everyone has conditioned us. So start simple, start humble, start with something that looks like you're not trying enough. But get around the basic measurements, like what are the simple numbers that I can rely on, and then tune, just keep tuning. There's actually a bank president, lots of moving parts in a bank. And, he sat down, one of these sage wisdom from the Midwest. And he's like, Andy, I run this bank on 3 numbers. And he's like, as long as I know which direction the 3 numbers are going, I'm good and I can tell. And it's while not not perfectly transferable, it is spiritually transferable. So you get to the you get to the basics, you tune, and then super basic data gathering. MVP, Google Sheets is your friend. Don't it was a great story about in the Toyota manufacturing process about how the plants have the Kanban, the cords that you can pull to stop the line. And when they were building the first factory a Toyota factory up in Canada, the manager wanted to put in all of the automation that he saw at the plants in Japan. And the Japanese manager said, no, we're going to go to Home Depot and we're going to get some buckets, and we're going to get green flags and red flags. And we're going to put the buckets next to the people, because the hardest thing you can do is getting the people to reliably do something. It's that process. Once the process is there, then we can automate it. And so that sequence, we often in our tech age rush to automation before we actually just contemplate the process and what needs to happen and what decisions are involved and who needs to do what. So staying super basic at the beginning is a key. And because reliability beats heroics every time. If you haven't read the Checklist Manifesto, it was a book, it's a number of years old now, but the gentleman was challenged to lower global surgery deaths. And it's like, well, geez, that's an impossible thing. That's, the reason people die in surgery in Boston is different than in Ghana. And, but they had a massive effect. A simple checklist, dropped surgical related complications and deaths by 35%. Well, what if you could have a 35% reduction in bad customer experiences? That's massive. Well, if it's possible for surgery, do we really think it's not possible here? And if you read things like anything by Kahneman, The Thinking Fast and Slow, and Noise was his most recent book, Human Decisioning, or Annie Duke, Thinking in Bets, all of these things lead to, human decisions are way trickier and way more error prone than we think. So getting methodical is key. So having that forecast in your pocket, consistent and directional, doesn't have to be perfect. The weather to this day isn't perfect. Yet we all look at it every day as if it is, because it's sufficiently reliable. It's directional, and it helps us. Early warning, again, get to the top 5 issues. It may be 7 for you, it may be 10, it may be 3. But having that extra time, buying that extra time in advance by figuring out what to look for is critical. And finally, the rescue plans. When you intervene with the customer before they had gotten to the end and can gracefully hand off to a process that feels like it's on purpose. And my one of these is Starbucks. They messed up my drink order, and I circled back around through the drive-through, and they gave me a card, and it said, sometimes the cup is half empty, the next one's on us. It was like a graceful fail. Just like failure happens, just account for it. And really, these rescue plans are built to do just that. So if you get the routine right, the way it should feel is like the president's daily briefing, where you have everything in your hands that you need to own today. It's been filtered through. It doesn't include a lot of extraneous nonsense, and it leaves you feeling prepared, ready to own the day. as you tackle this, just understand good systems aren't a miracle. They're there to change the mix. I didn't grow up playing baseball, but I love the idea of batting averages, because it's not like, listen, like the best person ever hit it 40% of the time, aka they missed 60% of the time. So it's not a binary switch. It's not a silver bullet. It's attenuated. But you can turn it up to 11 if you want. So to win the race for the customers now, you gotta stay on your toes, which means you got to be leaning forward. You got to have a plan. You got to be prepared, because otherwise, when the fire starts, you're not running on your toes but falling on your ass, and it's really, really hard to delight from this position. And that's the sort of takeaways. And being prepared is how we buy the headspace for ourselves as leaders and as our team to be in each moment with the customers. That being in that customers now is what they want from you. I'm sure we're all growing tired of chatbots and other things, and the customer experience battleground that it is today, I believe it ultimately has humanity at its intersection. So we need to know how to do that, because the KPIs of a CSAT boil down to a moment when a person needs your help and gets it. And I think about the KPIs and how's our CSAT doing. It's like, well, it's really about people. And by talking about it as a KPI, it can color our vision to realize what we're talking about as people. And let's be a person and love a person, and keep our head there. And it's amazing, if we keep our head there, how the KPI goes in the right direction. With that, caring enough to be prepared lets you start each day focused on delight. I think that positivity, that optimism, is something that is such a precious resource within the CX team, and it's the fires that will ultimately consume that energy. So with that, I will give a quick shameless plug. Storyhub, and you can go to the link, but we'll be introducing later this year a CX daily briefing. We're a smart layer in the CX tech stack to get intel to you. So with that, I thank you very much for the time, and look forward to any questions or thoughts.
Thank you so much. You've definitely brought the structure here. It was amazing just hearing your thoughts, and oh my goodness, you were probably one of the very first SaaS companies in 1997.
Yeah, we were two years before Salesforce.com, and at the time, no one had a word for software as a service. So it was really funny as we tried to explain to folks what we were doing, and what a subscription business model was. No one knew what a subscription business model was in that context. So it was a lot of training of venture capitalists and analysts at Gartner Group and things like that. So it's fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andy. And let's see, any last parting words? Any place where people can find and connect with you?
Yeah, please. I'm on LinkedIn. I know I saw that get dropped in there. Storyhub.ai is out there. Please check it out. We are, again, launching in probably January. But love for everyone to keep up, and hope this was helpful. That is my intent. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, everyone. And hey, we will see you in the next session, everyone. Bye.